Lyon are in a mess. Since winning the Ligue title 7 years in a row between 2002 and 2008, they've arguably been the biggest victims of Paris Saint-Germain deciding to start buying the league, finishing outside the top three for the first time in 15 years, the year after the big takeover back in 2011. They've managed to finish runners-up to PSG a couple of times since, but have finished outside the European qualification spots altogether for the last couple of seasons, leading to an exodus of all their best players and the acceleration of a downward spiral that saw them rock bottom of Ligue after 10 games with just 4 points on the board and yet to win a game this season. Their situation is pretty desperate, but it was avoidable. This is what Lyon should have done if they wanted to avoid relegation and start competing at the top of Ligue 1 once again. And in fact, one of the biggest challenges at the club is off the pitch rather than on it, because the board seem to be living in a fantasy land, demanding Champions League qualification this season despite not finishing in the top six since 2021, and a media prediction of a 5th place finish. The fans are a little more realistic, only hoping for Conference League qualification, but they're not the ones who'll decide if I get to keep my job or not, so it's not going to be enough to just avoid the relegation battle they're in real life. I need to turn this team into a top 4 side in one transfer window. The starting transfer budget is only £20 million, but I did manage to sell a few clauses that push that up to £27 million. But the wage budget is entirely maxed out, so if we're going to invest in this squad in any significant kind of way, we're going to have to sell first. And there are a couple of saleable assets that could help us do just that. Youngsters Castello Luqueba and Bradley Barcola went for £80 million between them in real life and have even higher values than that in game, so letting those two go could generate some serious transfer money. And actually, the best players at the club outside of those two, Anthony Lopez, Nicolas Tagliafico and Alexander Lacazette, are all the wrong side of 30, so there's an argument for moving them on as well and going all in on youth by picking up some low-cost wonder kids to build a new-look team around. But there's a lot of ifs in that plan, and it relies on getting good value for players who might not even want to leave. So the initial plan has to be to see what we can do with the players that are already here. The squad balance seems to be set up for a 4-3-3, so that seems like a good place to start, and there's actually pretty good squad depth throughout. In real life, this starting 11 was completely torn apart, with Barcola, Luqueba, Favre and Toko Ekambi all sold for close to €100 million, with none of them really being properly replaced. So if we do nothing else, we have to make sure not to repeat that mistake. I set about clearing out a lot of the dead wood and loaning out a load of youngsters to try and free up some wage budget before heading into the transfer market for the first time, bringing in Nadir Zortea on loan from Atalanta for the season to offer some cover at right back. We then brought in a third choice goalkeeper just to fill that gap in the squad and continued bargain hunting, bringing in Jesus Vallejo on loan from Real Madrid with a permanent transfer agreed for next summer for just £1.6 million. With the most obvious gaps in the squad filled, we had two options. Throw the rest of the budget at a wonder kid or two, or wait for any of the star players to attract interest and then focus on replacing them as and when they leave. Crippled with indecision, I did neither of those things and was punished with a 0-0 draw against Strasbourg on the opening day of the season before Albert Sambi Lokonga arrived on loan from Arsenal to strengthen the midfield and lighten the mood. And he inspired a massive 5-0 win over Montpellier, so we tried to repeat that trick and brought in another midfielder on loan in the shape of former Lyon man Jean Lucas from Monaco. It would be lovely to sign somebody permanently at some point, but considering the best offer we've had for Barcola was a loan from Lazio, and nobody seems interested in breaking the bank for Luqueba, I'm happy to keep strengthening an already pretty decent side with some loans. We followed up with a 2-2 draw away against Nice, with Barcola scoring 2 to demonstrate why I'll have no issue with keeping him at the club if nobody wants to spend big money on him. After the success of Lokonga, we went back to Arsenal for another loan, this time Nuno Tavares at left back, who joined with a permanent transfer for £6.75 million agreed for the following summer. We then got fed up of waiting for anyone to leave and decided to blow our entire transfer budget on one deadline day signing, heading back to Arsenal once again to pick up Folarin Balogun for £35 million straight off the back of his 21-goal season in this league last year. And with 9 hours to go on deadline day, we had a very good-looking first 11 with more than enough depth to see us through a good season. It's always a good sign when you end a transfer window with the players who were your star men at the start of it, like Lacazette and Tagliafico, reduced to rotation in players. Feeling very pleased for myself, I decided to do my bit for a good cause and protected Manchester United from signing Johnny Evans like they did in real life, and he actually fits in quite nicely as a rotation option for me. And we celebrated the transfer window closing without any of our best players leaving by holding PSG to a draw, but we have to be happy with that as a transfer window, infinitely better than it was in real life. The team is massively upgraded throughout, and we've even got some building blocks in place for the future, with 3 of the loan players already having agreed to sign permanently in cut price deals next summer. Our unbeaten start to the season continued through September and into October with a 5-1 Barcola hat-trick inspired win over Leyton Orient, sending us top of the league after 8 games, with Barcola top scorer in the league and fans questioning why we spent all that money on Balogun, who was still yet to find the net and missed the Lorient game on international duty. Balogun actually missed the entire month playing for some American youth team in some made-up mid-season tournament, and was still away when we faced Marseille in a top-of-the-table clash, where our lack of firepower and plan B beyond Barcola led to us suffering our first defeat of the season, pushing us down to 4th place as we hit the start of November. It took Balogun less than a minute on his return from America to open his Lyon account, but he was once again upstaged by Barcola, who got another hat-trick in a 5-1 win over Rennes. Last season's top scorer Lacazette wasn't particularly amused with either of them though, and after not starting a game all season, decided to start a dressing room mutiny instead. And that led to us losing against Lens, so we offered him out for transfer and he'll be heading to Saudi Arabia as soon as the transfer window opens in January. Unfortunately, the moment he left, his best buddy Corentin Tolisso got upset, and now he's taken over as leader of the Grumpy Boys. So with the January transfer window open, top priority is a midfield replacement for him so we can send him on his way as well. And that was made a little easier by the board increasing our transfer budget. So with that and the Lacazette money, we now have about £15 million to spend. On the pitch, we're exactly where we need to be at the halfway point of the season, sitting in 4th place in a Champions League qualification spot, although Monaco and Lens are very close on our tails. Carlos Soler was on the transfer list at Paris Saint-Germain after only playing 1 game all season, so we brought him in for £17 million and immediately offered Tolisso out for transfer, with him heading back to Germany on loan to Stuttgart to basically calm down, bringing our dynamics back to where we wanted them, with the only remaining unhappy player, Dejan Lovren, who apparently had no mates to support him, also heading to Saudi Arabia. We then decided to freshen the midfield up a bit more with a youngster, with Desire Dewey coming in for £4 million from Rennes, which allowed us to sell Jeff Rayner Adelaide to Club Bruges. The boys then decided we didn't have enough depth in goal, just randomly, midway through the window, and they all piled on again, so we had to go goalkeeper shopping. We brought in Lucas Perry for £12 million, who'll take over as our starting goalkeeper, which cheered everyone up, even though it pushed club icon Anthony Lopez out of the team. They brought this on themselves. We still had money to spend after clearing out a load more fringe players, so we strengthened the midfield even more with Eligif Elmas, I'm going to decide that's how you say his name, joining for £10 million from Napoli, and Carlo Holz for £1.8 million from Rosenborg. Which brings us to the end of a very productive January window that leaves us with a first 11 that should be more than good enough to secure that top 4 finish and a return to the Champions League with some decent strength in depth as well. Financially, we're within all our budgets, with decent money still in the bank, and although the projection indicates we might lose a few euros over the next 2 seasons, a Champions League return should solve that problem, and we're still well within FFP. January was just as productive on the pitch, as we won every game, making it into the last 16 of the French Cup and holding on to that top 4 spot. Dynamics were good, the squad is happy, now we just need to keep winning football matches. Which we didn't do. We really struggled against the teams around us, with losses against Marseille and Nice, leaving us in 5th place when Bradley Barcola got injured for the rest of the season. The board were already unhappy that we were looking like we might struggle to finish top 4, and with Balogun still not scoring either, we had a problem. And things went from bad to worse in the French Cup quarter-final when we got smashed 5-0 by Marseille, and with 11 games to go, all we had left to play for was the Ligue and trying to get back into the Champions League, with a sneaking suspicion that if we fail, especially after wasting all that money on Balogun, that I might even get the sack. We responded brilliantly though with a 5-2 win over top 4 rivals Lens, with Balogun finally scoring, probably, not coincidentally, just after he finished his intensive language course and he's now fluent in French. And at least temporarily, we were back up to 3rd in the league. Form continued to be iffy in March with our super fun new win 1, draw 1 pattern, but the league table is very much separating into a top 5 with us in it. So we just have to make sure that we're not the one club that misses out on that Champions League spot. By the time we got to what was effectively a Champions League playoff match against 5th place Monaco, we were clinging on to our 4th place spot by the skin of our teeth with only 2 wins in our last 6 matches. Defeat in this one would almost certainly condemn us to Thursday night football, which is still an improvement on the last few seasons and a massive improvement on the relegation battle Lyon are in real life, but would probably upset the board a smidgen. And of course, we drew 0-0. My word, are we missing Barcola. 3 games left, level on points with Monaco, and it was going to be touch and go. And it was taken out of our hands when we threw away a 3-2 lead away against Lille to lose 4-3. Monaco don't seem to want to finish in the top 4 either, though, so they also bottled against Clermont, but not quite so hard, and it was enough to move them 1 point ahead of us with 2 games to go. And then we both won on the penultimate weekend of the season, setting up quite an exciting last day. So exciting, in fact, that we rushed Barcola back from injury on the final day and did manage to pick up the win, but so did Monaco, and we ended up finishing 1 point behind them in 5th place, much to the board's fury. So we ended up back in Europe for the first time in 3 years, qualifying for the Europa League, and a 5th place finish is progress on the 7th and 8th of the last 2 seasons, and of course the sorry state they're in real life, but it might not be enough. Record signing Balogun was a massive flop, scoring only 6 goals all season, and our budgets for next season are reduced because we didn't get that Champions League money we were kind of banking on. Bradley Barcola is great, but will probably be leaving us this summer, and next season looks like it could be a struggle with a team likely to be weaker than this year's team, with Barcola and the loans all gone back and not enough money to replace them. But you know what? We halted the decline, we got them back in Europe, and I'm sure we'd get back in the Champions League if we had 1 more year. So new rule for every video in this What They Should Have Done series: if we hit 5,000 likes, we'll do another season. So you know what to do if you want to see me put my money where my mouth is. But in the meantime, that was what Lyon should have done if they wanted to halt their decline and get back into Europe. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure you leave a nice big thumbs up to let me know you want to see more videos just like this one, and it also lets YouTube know that they need to share it around. Let me know down in the comments who you'd like to see me rebuild next. Subscribe to the channel, turn your notifications on if you haven't done so already, and thank you very much for watching.